we start off on this portion, it just jumps right into it. And understand we've been talking about these things for the past couple weeks now. We've been taking some time setting all this up. So this isn't just some new part. Remember, we ended on a cliffhanger last week, right? And so here we're kind of setting up what's going to happen. So what do we see what happens here? Well, we start off with Joseph's brothers are all before him. We see that he withheld Shimon from them until they returned with Benjamin. Because remember, when they returned with Benjamin, he released Shimon to them. And we talked about how last week it was a prophetic picture about how when they return with the son of the promise, as they come back and they return, that their hearing is released to them so that they will find mercy in the court. And but that's prophetic. And so there's a lot of prophetic things that continue to happen this week as well. We know that the Torah is a very prophetic book, right? I mean, it was written prophetically and it continues to be prophetic. So we start with this. Benjamin was found with a silver cup, and it was Joseph's cup. And so they bring them back so that Joseph can say, I'm keeping Benjamin. Y'all go on. Why would he do that? Because Benjamin was the son of his mother, his only, true full-blood relative, right? All his other brothers were half-brothers, right? So he wants his brother to be with him. So he devises a plan so that he can keep Benjamin with him. And so, problem. Judah declared to Jacob that I will not return back to you, O Israel, without Benjamin. Interesting how Judah and Benjamin were put together in the southern kingdom. Interesting how Rav Shaul, the Apostle Paul, was also from the tribe of Benjamin. And Paul makes a statement that I would go to hell if my brothers could see the light and the truth. Judah laid their life down for Benjamin, and then we see areas where Benjamin laid their life down for Judah too. See, but they work together, right? So what does Judah do? He's thinking, if I can't go back to my father and not have Benjamin. So I have a choice. I either don't care about my father, or I lay my life down to preserve Israel. And what did Judah decide? He would lay his life down to preserve Israel. So now he goes to Pharaoh, or as you would say, because remember when Pharaoh put Joseph in command, he says, only when I'm on the throne am I over you. What you say goes, Joseph. Right? In other words, like we said last week, when Pharaoh punched the clock and went home, Joseph was still in charge. Right? And so here we are. Benjamin, because of Benjamin, Judah is laying his life down. And he goes to approach Joseph. And that's this word we come to here, Vayigash. And he drew near. The word is nagash. Nagash. It means to come near like as you would to lie with a woman, or even in battle. Because, every word has many different forms of positive and negative and everything in there. So the idea is when you draw near to somebody, you're either drawing near to them for the purpose of closeness, possibly intimacy or mercy, or you're drawing near to them for the purpose of conflict. When Judah drew near to Joseph, he knew this could go very good or very bad. Judah draws near to Joseph. He draws near to this Egyptian. So he thought. Let's put it a different way. He drew near to his brother who was Hebrew, who was of Israel, who did not look Israel at all. He looked Egyptian. He looked like the world. He looked like everybody else. He did not look like a set-apart people that was called Israel. Pharaoh knew that Joseph was Hebrew when he put him in charge, did he not? So why the charade? Why the charade to try to dress him up and make him look Egyptian? to shave him and to dress him in the garments of Egypt and to put the makeup and the headdress and all these things, just like they would in Egypt. Why bother? If he knew he was, Hebrew, why make him look like everybody else? Because he knew. I mean, think about this. The people in a kingdom want their king to represent them, true? Well, think about this. Pharaoh, if he would put somebody in charge, would want whoever he put in charge to represent him. And thereby representing him to the people and representing the people and representing Egypt itself. He didn't want he didn't want Joseph to look Hebrew. So he took this Hebrew and renamed him one that reveals hidden secrets, or one that gives the breath or the bread of life even. He renames him and he changes his appearance in an effort to remove any Hebrew ethnicity from him so that the people would more readily accept him. Submit to you, the early church fathers did the same thing with Yeshua. In an effort to try to remove from any way, shape, or form things that look Jewish, they tried to remove anything that would allude to the fact that he was. And they dressed him up just like anybody else would. Look at the pictures. I mean, come on. So, what we have is the need for a revealing. The need that when Judah draws near to the one that looks Egyptian, and they're confused in this, but to come to find out, he's really his brother from one of the tribes. Their eyes will be open, and they will see him for who he is. Genesis 44:18. Judah approached Joseph and he said, "Please, my lord, let your servant say something to you privately. Don't be angry with your servant, for you are like Pharaoh himself." Why would I say you were like Pharaoh himself? Not only do you have the authority of Pharaoh, but you got his temper too. Right? He says, you're like Pharaoh himself. And my question is, for your servant himself guaranteed his safety. I said, if I fail to bring him to you, then I will bear the blame before my father forever. Therefore, I beg you, let your servant stay as a slave to my lord instead of the boy, and let the boy go up with his brothers. For how can I go back to my father if the boy isn't with me? I couldn't bear to see my father so overwhelmed by anguish. Saying he cannot return to Israel without Benjamin. He must. And notice as the time as he's before Joseph, that he's continually calling him what? Adoni. My Lord. My Lord. Have mercy, my Lord. I can't return without Benjamin. My Lord, I brought you Benjamin. Have mercy. Right? 45. At last, Joseph could no longer control his feelings in front of his attendants, and he cried, "Get everybody away from me." So no one else was with him when Joseph revealed to his brothers who he was. Listen to this. When he revealed who he was, he declared everyone else around that was not Israel to depart from him. And they departed, and they went away from him. And then as he's standing before his brothers, he can't handle it anymore. He sees that Judah is laying his life down for his brother. He sees that he's not willing to sell his brother into slavery anymore. He's not willing to who cares what dad thinks or who cares about any of the other brothers. He's not willing. He wants to lay his life down because he knows he's caring for Benjamin. He laid his life for this. He's caring about Israel. He's laying his life down. He's learned from his mistakes. And as he's begging for compassion, as he's begging for mercy, Joseph can't stand it anymore because he sees what is going on in the heart of his brothers. And he stands before them and he says, "Get everyone away from me. Everyone who is not of these men, get away from me." And as they stand before him, he cries, what? "Ani Yosef." I am Joseph. Look at this. He was only revealed to his brothers, not all of Egypt. John 1:10 says he was in the world. The world came through him, but the world did not know him. The world doesn't know him. They don't know who he really is. We say a lot of the body today is in an identity crisis because we don't truly know the God that we serve. And if we don't truly know the God that we serve, how can we truly know who we are? And here, standing before them was the Savior of the world, and he's an Egyptian. But he's not. He was Hebrew. Luke 9:20. But you, he said to them, who do you say I am? Oh, many people, hey, Yeshua, these people are saying you're this, and these people are saying you're that, and these people are saying you're the other thing. And Yeshua says, none of that matters. Who do you say I am? Doesn't matter what they're saying out there. Doesn't matter what the world is saying. Who do you say that I am? He said, what? You're the Moshiach of God. It was revealed to them. It was not yet revealed to the world. 21, and he warned them. He said, don't tell this to anyone. Why not? I mean, after all, isn't that why he came? Tell everyone. No, it wasn't time. It wasn't time. Back to Genesis 45. So he says to his brothers, Ani Yosef, I am Joseph. What do we do? What do I say? Can you imagine? Standing before you in a court that you are there for the purpose of being judged. And standing before you is the very man you came against. You had killed. You sold into slavery. The very man that you slandered. The very man that you rejected. The very man that you did all this to is standing before you, and he has the power and the authority to save you or to cast you into the pit. And he reveals, I am the one that you rejected. I am the one that you sold. I am the one that you had put to death, so you thought. Death couldn't hold him. Can you imagine the thoughts that are going through their mind? When you come and you truly are honest with yourself and you stand before the most holy God, who is the only one who has the power and authority to judge and to save you or to cast you into the pit, and you take a good honest look at yourself and you find out you're guilty, what can you do? There's no question, there's no doubt. How can you say, no, it wasn't my fault? When Judah is the very one that sold him and said, let's kill him. How can you say it's not my fault? I didn't mean it. Really? I was just kidding. What are you going to do? But you know what? Joseph gave the answer. He gave the very answer that they needed. What did he say? He didn't say, get away from me, you filthy, no good, lousy, good for rotten, I'll get my revenge. What did he say? Come closer. Defies everything that we ever known. But in the kingdom, as we're found guilty, the cure is not to run away. The cure is not to hide. The cure is not to try to cover it up. The cure is not to try to do anything else. But when we're standing before him and we're found guilty, the cure is to come closer. Because only in coming closer to him can the past be wiped away. So here's the story, 45:5. Joseph says this, don't be sad that you sold me into slavery. Don't be angry at yourselves that you sold me into slavery. It was God who sent me ahead of you. To do what? Preserve life. It was God that sent me ahead of you to preserve life. It was the fact that God sent me ahead of you, and all this happened for the sake that you would be saved. Because if Joseph was not where he was, the whole world would have died off as they knew it. The famine was that severe. And so Joseph says, don't be upset. Don't be mad that you did these things to me. Kind of sounds a little bit like, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Closely. Because of Joseph, he had the bread that would give life. Anyone, what's that word? Anyone who came to Joseph and asked him for their life to be spared, as he put their life in his hands so that he would give them their portion, he said they would receive the bread that gives them life. Notice, it didn't matter if they were Egypt, it didn't matter if they were Israel, it didn't matter what part of the world they were from, didn't matter if they were pagan or not, didn't matter what their past was, didn't matter what their history was, didn't matter what was going on. If they knew to come to Joseph, they lived. But in order for them to live, they had to become a bondservant to him. Isn't that amazing? Zechariah 8:23. Thus says the Lord of hosts, in those days it shall come to pass, 10 men shall take hold out of all the languages of the nations. They shall take hold of the skirt of him that is a Jew, saying, we will go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. 10 men. When you talk about 10 men, it alludes to the fact of the 10 tribes that were scattered into all the nations. That's why it says 10 men in all the nations, because these are the ones that were scattered throughout the world. And so these 10 will come and they will take hold of the skirt of him that is a Jew. Well, what's the edge and the bottom of the Jew? The tzitzi. But which Jew are we talking about here? Yeshua. So they will come and they will grab hold of this Jew and then they will be saved. Because they see, we're going with you because God is with you. Right? Look at this one. Amos 6, 1 and 9. You can read the whole thing, but 1 and 9. Woe to them that are at ease in Zion, who trust in the mountain of Samaria, which are named chief of the nations, to whom house of Israel came. The house of Israel. We have some of the house of Israel even in Samaria, right? And it shall come to pass, if there remain 10 men in one house, they shall die. What's that got to do with anything? Because think about this for a minute. If the 10 men remain in the house that they're in other words, the 10 that were scattered all over the world, if they remain scattered all over the world, what's going to happen to them? In order to be preserved and life to be given to them, they need to return to that one Jew. So Joseph says that God sent me before you to give you a remnant on the earth and to save you alive for a great deliverance. So the remnant is sharit. It means a remainder. That which remains. Okay? Notice it doesn't specify a number. It just says that which remains. Now think about it. The famine was so great in the land, do you think that some people perished? But all who came to Joseph for the bread became part of that remnant. Right? And then he says this. He was put there for the purpose. What was the purpose? For a great deliverance. What's the great deliverance? Plita? It means deliverance or the escaped portion or the escaped remnant. The remnant that remains that escapes the famine. Isaiah 37:31. Meanwhile, the remnant of the house of Israel, or the house of Judah, that has escaped will again take root downward and bear fruit where? Upward. So we're talking about a remnant. Revelation 12:17. And the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed. Well, who is the remnant of the seed? Those that keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Yeshua. Amen. What book is this in? Revelation. Have we seen this happen yet? Then we still see a need for there to be keeping the commandments of God and to have the testimony of Yeshua. Amen. Just side note. Isaiah 11:10. On that day, the root of Jesse, which stands as a banner for the people, and the who? Goyim. Goyim literally just means nations, guys. The nations will seek him out. Seek who out? The root of Jesse. Who is the root of Jesse? Yeshua. The nations, those in the nations will seek him out. On that day, Adonai will raise his hand again a second time to do what? Reclaim the remnant of his people who remain from Asher, Egypt, Patros, Ethiopia, Elam, Shinar, Hamat, and the islands in the sea. So he will stretch out his hands and reclaim the remnant from the nations. He will hoist a banner for the Goyim. What did Yeshua say? So when you see the Son of Man lifted up as a banner for all people, right? He will hoist the banner for the Goyim, assemble the dispersed of Israel, and gather the scattered of Judah from the four corners of the earth. Listen, the rejection of Joseph by his brothers worked out for their good. You see that? Where else do we see that? Romans 11:15. For if their casting Yeshua aside means reconciliation for the world, what will their accepting him mean? But life from the dead. Can you see that? It's the same thing that we see here. You know what he's talking about in Romans 11? It's the same thing that we see, testimony of Yeshua. So they couldn't see Joseph. Why? Was it just because he was dressed like an Egyptian? Was it just because he had a little too much makeup on? Was this the only reason? No. Why? Think about this. Because they couldn't see him before, because though he was standing right in front of them, their eyes were veiled. They could not see their brother that was standing right in front of them, but the time had come for the veil to be removed, because as Scripture says, when you turn to God, the veil goes away. So their veil has been removed, and they now see him for who he is. So the time had come for Joseph to be revealed to his brothers. Back to Romans 11:24. So if you were cut off by what is by nature a wild olive tree and grafted, contrary to nature, into a cultivated olive tree, how much more will these natural branches be grafted back into their own olive tree? Even though they may have been cut off, they can still be put back on. Okay? For brothers, I want you to understand this truth, which God formerly, what? Concealed, but now has revealed, so that you won't imagine that you know more than you actually do. It is that stoniness to a degree has come upon Israel until what? Maloha Goyim. Until the Gentile world enters into its fullness, or until the filling of the Gentiles is complete. In other words, until the fullness of the Gentiles, or those that filled the nations, return. And that's when all this will become revealed. Well, if this teaching has blessed you, I want you to check out our other resources. You can check out our website at www.ruachonline.com. And there's links there to other resources that are available to you, other teachings, other books, other offerings. You can go to YouTube, Facebook, all of these things from our website, and check us out. Because if they enjoyed this teaching, there's going to be much more that hopefully will bless you as well. Thank you. Hi, this is Dr. David Jones from Ruach Ministries International, and I've got some exciting news for you. We have a new series coming out, 6-part series of the Gospel according to Abraham. Abraham? What does he got to do with the Gospel? Well, you're going to have to find out, aren't you? The thing is, Galatians 3 says that the Gospel was proclaimed to Abraham. So what does that mean for a believer today? What does that mean to a person who is not Jewish? What does that mean to a person who is Jewish? What does that mean for all of us today? Well, check it out. It's a good series, and it'll be coming your way soon. For more information, you can check out our website at www.ruachonline.com. Hi, this is Dr. David Jones here. I just want to say we do have some other resources available to you, one of which is a book entitled Famine, Walking in Blessing in the Time of Famine. It's based out of Amos 8, 11, and 12, talking about there's a famine of hearing the word of the Lord. So what is that famine? Does it mean the word of the Lord is not being proclaimed, or does it mean there's a famine of actually listening to it? Food for thought, isn't it? Well, if you want to know more, check it out. Go to www.ruachonline.com, and there's a link on our homepage. Just click and it'll take you to more information on the book entitled Famine, Walking in Blessing in a Time of Famine. Well, how important are the feasts of the Lord? I think we can say that if the Lord set out a banquet, set out a table, and invited you to come be a partaker, would we answer? Would we hear? Would we go? Or would we blow him off because we have something more important to do? Well, that's what this book is. The King invites you to his table. Are we going to answer the call? The feast of the Lord, appointed times where the Lord has said he wants to meet with us face to face. Will we heed? Will we answer? Will we go? Check it out, www.ruachonline.com. On the homepage, there is a link to take you for more information. The King invites you to his table.